The following is an excerpt from tonight's brand new episode of the Geekvolution Radio Hour, beginning at 7 p.m. Central on Supervillain Network. Tonight, Vince and I are talking about the future of geekdom, specifically comics and superhero stuff, where things were 10 years ago, and where we thought they would be versus where they are now, and where everything is headed. Tune in tonight. It's going to be a really fun show. And in the meantime, thanks for listening. Vince, I want to talk a little bit about Ghostbusters. We've had some new pictures for the Ghostbusters reboot over the last several weeks, and you and I have not had a chance to get together because the world is ending on Mondays when we record this.
Monsoon Mondays.
Seriously, yeah. In
Tornado Tuesdays. Whirlwind Wednesdays.
Okay, you're clearly better than this because I keep trying to think of one, but you've got me before. What would a good T be?
Oh,
torrential rain Thursdays.
Oh, I know what TB is. Tuberculosis.
That was a non sequitur. So, Ghostbusters. We've had a few pictures now. We've seen what the Ghostbusters car looks like. We've seen what the new Ecto-1 is, and we've seen the ladies in their new brown and orange costumes. Vince, what do you think so far of what you're hearing about it and what you've seen, and what's your spin? Because of course you're a big Ghostbusters fan, and I know that you probably wanted to see something in the original. Well, we've talked about this a lot. You would have much preferred to see something in the original universe than a reboot. Yeah. How discouraged are you, or do you even care? Go ahead.
Well, I'm about halfway in between because, I love the Ghostbusters. I want to see this movie. I want to see this movie. I'm going to. But in my mind, it's not the same thing.
You're not going to boycott it.
No, I'm not going to boycott it. I'm not going to girlcott it either. So, I think this movie could be good.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it won't be. I'm a little... There's a part of me that when you have three white girls and a black girl, and there's obviously some kind of parallel there to the actual Ghostbusters movies.
Sure.
So you can kind of see that they're trying to echo it in some way, but when I see the picture of...
Well, it looks like we've got kind of like, the nerdy science chick who's probably a foil for Egon.
Yeah, and that's the thing, though, is that she looks a lot like a female version of the real Ghostbusters Egon. And
that's kind of fun.
The thing that I think it's interesting, but the thing that I see that and I go, well, they're trying to make lightning strike twice. And it makes me a little nervous. But again, just because somebody's out there creating a costume for a person doesn't mean that that's what they had in mind originally. So, or when they were writing it. So just because they're trying to, in my mind, they might be trying to make lightning strike twice by doing the exact same thing.
What do you mean by that?
Meaning that they say, well, it worked one time, so let's do it again, only this time let's use women. So
I feel like the phrase lightning striking twice is like let's take would be that no matter what you did with it. You know what I mean? Where it's
that's fair.
We're hoping that this property will make money again. I mean, it's and like with Ghostbusters 2, it really didn't. So or at least, actually I don't know how that performed, but it was a thing that wasn't critically acclaimed.
Yeah.
But I think what you're, maybe not to put words in your mouth, but I feel like maybe what you're trying to say is that they're trying to make the same movie but just different enough.
Yeah, I don't want to...
They can't say that it's the exact same thing.
I don't want a clone, and I don't want something that's like an amalgamation of all the former Ghostbuster stuff. And what I want is for them to try to make a movie. Actually, what I wanted was for them to try to make a movie in the same continuity set in a different city.
See, I never wanted Ghostbusters 3. I wanted something in between, which would be a reboot in the sense that you go off with some new characters. It wouldn't be a reboot, but what I mean is, couldn't we do exactly what we're doing and just set it in the same world so that we don't have to have an origin story again?
Yeah. So
and just because we're doing an origin doesn't mean it's going to be bad, but boy, how many of these kinds of things have we had where it does feel like you're just going back to the well and saying... Like kind of watering it down a lot of the time is what you end up with, and we've seen this with so many horror remakes and things like that. At the same time, a lot of the time when you go forward with the same characters from before and you do like a 20 or 30 year later kind of sequel, you end up with a lot of problems there too, because there's a lot of cliches now and stuff that we see with like with like Indiana Jones 4 and stuff like that, where oftentimes it has to be like, oh look, somebody has a child they didn't know they had, and then you always have the same sort of thing. You wouldn't have wanted that either, but why not make it in the same universe and maybe just have some cameos from some of the previous characters to tie it together, but then let it go its own way, and it could still be 4 chicks.
Yeah, you know,
it could still be 4 girls. Like, that's fine.
That's what I wanted. You know, you set it in Chicago, and because that's a natural choice. You set it in Chicago. You have 4 Ghostbuster girls, and you make a movie. I mean, so I guess I look at these pictures and I think, you know, the style of the vehicle, the style of the costumes are in keeping with kind of the original feel. You know, they look like exterminators. They look like they don't look like costumes. They look like working girls. So let me phrase that. They look like
girls that are working.
Yeah, they look like people who are blue collar workers.
Yeah.
So yeah. I don't know.
Which, of course, is also a throwback to the original.
Yeah, so, you know, I do feel like it might be maintaining that original feel, but even then, I just, like, if it's going to do that, why not just make it the same thing? So I guess what I'm saying is that it kind of saddens me and interests me at the same time. I want to see where it's going, but what I wish they would have done.
Yeah.
Is still present in my mind.
Well, it's a movie that is drumming up a lot of controversy because a lot of people, I'm seeing this all over the internet, folks reacting to the car. It looks like a hearse, and people say, and you've got some purists that are like, oh no, it can't be a hearse. It's supposed to be, you know, the ambulance,
ambulance
or whatever. And obviously, I always say, well, it doesn't have to be just like the original, and should it? Because it's you know, it's a new thing. But the argument on the other side, of course, is, well, if they think they're being super clever and they make a big deal out of, see, look, we're going after a ghost in a hearse, look at us, then that might be indicative of the really obvious, obnoxious, immature humor that could be in the movie. I think it's too early to say that. I think we need to see what the context of the thing is. I immediately saw that and thought, well, what if? And of course, this. I don't know anything. You know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be this to be cool either. But the first thing I thought was, well, it might be neat because we know they're not all scientists this time. Like, well, and they weren't all scientists the first time, but I'm just saying, like they come from
scientist is a loose term for Bankman.
Yeah. But
he's more like a game show.
He's more like a game show. You're more like a game show host. But what if one of the Ghostbusters worked at a mortuary?
Yeah, and they had access.
The hearse, and you because I used to actually work at a mortuary funeral home, and every few years they have to sell their cars and get new ones. And what if they were selling off their old cars? And maybe, what if they had like this really old hearse that they've been driving forever and they really need to get rid of it? And then she was like, okay, well, we've got our car because like they're broke and they don't have enough money. And you can tell that that's the direction they're going because that's the whole point. Of having like the really kind of you know, ratty looking costumes and that kind of thing.
And originally. So
yeah,
you're fired. What are you going to do?
Exactly. But
who are you going to call?
But a lot of the controversy has been people who don't like that this movie is happening must hate it, even though they haven't seen it yet, because it's girls. And I think that might be true. There might be some people that are saying, and like, oh, you must hate women. And whatever, case by case, different people saying different things. For me, I have my reservations about the thing because it's not what I would have wanted in the first place. And more to the point, it's not because it's women. It's because it's, A, I didn't want to reboot, and B, I'm afraid it might be a little too raunchy for my taste. That's my thing, because Kevin Feige kind of has,
well, I mean, that's the thing, though, is that,
or no, what's his name? Not I'm thinking of Kevin Feige. Who's the guy who's directing this? It's Paul Feig.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've seen Bridesmaids.
Yeah, I hated Bridesmaids.
You didn't like that movie.
But, I mean, he and I think there's another woman who was involved in The Heat. He and this person who did The Heat are doing the Ghostbusters reboot. So, you know what? I really liked The Heat. I thought...
sure.
I thought the character that Melissa McCarthy played worked well with Sandra Bullock. I kind of wish Melissa McCarthy would be allowed to be something different than what she is. I hope she's not the kind of gross masculine version of what she is, because I mean, go back to the Gilmore Girls. Did I watch some of it? Yes, I did. And she was kind of sweet and fun and spunky, and she didn't have to be this really butch chick. And you know what? If she is, she is. Again, I like the heat.
I didn't see it, but a lot of people said a lot of people were really surprised by how funny Spy apparently was. I didn't see that. Did you see that?
I didn't see. I wanted to see it because based on a trailer, I heard all those posters and stuff. I'm like, that's going to be terrible. And then I saw a trailer and I thought, wow, that's kind of like Get Smart with a Woman. That looks good.
Yeah, and people said it was really funny, and were surprised. Like a lot of people were like, I don't want to see that, but they went anyway, and then really liked it. And so a lot of people are turning around a little bit on Ghostbusters because of that, and they're like, oh, well, she might be great because she was in that. I think that's the same girl, right?
Yeah, I support Melissa McCarthy. I think she's a good actress. At least I think she's a funny actress.
Yeah, so I mean that's cool. And
she was good in St. Vincent.
I think it's also important to remember that not everything Ivan Reitman did was gold either.
Yeah.
And that, like, especially later in his career, and of course, people, sometimes have later careers and they're just not as great. But like, Ivan Reitman made one of my least favorite movies in the superhero vein ever, which was My Super Ex-Girlfriend, which I loathe and think is one of the most detestable things I've ever seen ever. So, and he made Ghostbusters. So, what are you gonna do?
He made Year One.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
So,
but
at least I think he did.
But
heck, I don't know.
But all I'm saying is that, like,
what do you guys listen to this for?
Is that, like, so that was a guy who was who also had a penchant for somewhat raunchy comedies and kind of like adult thing, not gross out necessarily, but kind of adult things. He made Stripes and stuff, and so this guy is not completely outside of the same vein as Ivan Reitman. I think in some ways he's even the modern day Ivan Reitman. And in some ways, and he probably just goes a little bit farther, but I feel like because that Ghostbusters became a thing that had a reputation for being a family-friendly thing, I think he might have a little bit of a duty to be careful about that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, because Ghostbusters, and that's the big thing I'm hoping for, really, is that A, it's not watered down, and B, it's not too raunchy, because Ghostbusters was an adult sort of thing, but then it was just tasteful enough that families could see it, and then it had a lot of merchandising. So I do think that they maybe have a responsibility to make sure that kids can go because they're going to want to. Do you think, or am I off base on that?
That's a thing. I saw an interview with the director, and one of the things he said was that they're trying to preserve the original feel of the comedy, but they're also trying to make it a little bit darker. So the darker thing makes me wonder if whether or not it's going to be more of an adult movie in the way of like the horror tropes. But I don't necessarily have faith, but I have hope that this comedy is going to be something that is accessible and interesting and funny without having to be a woman having a bowel movement in the middle of a street.
Well, so, I also feel like doing Ghostbusters now, doing a horror or a comedy that is playing with horror tropes and doing ghosts and monsters and things is inherently going to be darker by being 30 years later. Yeah. I don't know why you even have to say that as a selling point. It's going to, like, our sensibilities are different. Like things are more okay for kids now than they were. We've all, for better or worse, become a little bit more desensitized to certain things. I feel like it could be as dark as the original Poltergeist and feel tame now for kids. Like,
if you look at,
I don't know how that's a selling point.
I think people just like hearing the word dark, but that's just so they're like, it's gonna be dark.
I think that's a perception. I think they used to. I think we're numbed by it now, and I think everything says that. I also think we've had the word dark in enough movies that even your average just moviegoer is starting to go, okay, really? Do we have to keep saying that? Like,
does it have the word dark in it? Does it have anything to do with Batman? Why should I care?
Yeah, it's just so many things have that, but I mean, Searching in Darkness, Thor: The Dark World. I mean, we've had so many darks.
Dark. That was a great.
And
movie.
That's just things in the vein of what we talk about, on Geekvolution.
Darkness Falls. The darkness